Bad idea detected. Welcome to Dumbora.
Apparently, raising kids now means testing chaos like it's a subscription box for bad ideas. 1. Baby on board, the tiny yellow triangle that turned cars into mobile panic rooms. Somewhere in the glorious suburban chaos of the 1980s, America decided that a small plastic sign suction cupped to a minivan window would somehow transform traffic into a humanitarian mission. Baby on board signs exploded like cassette tapes and shoulder pads, as if every driver on the interstate would suddenly whisper, "Oh wow, an infant. Better not drive like a caffeinated raccoon." The original idea was allegedly safety. The real result? Millions of parents announcing they'd reproduced, while the rest of us sat behind them watching a beige Dodge Caravan merge at the speed of emotional damage. Soon, every car looked like it was transporting royal cargo instead of a screaming toddler covered in cracker dust. And let's be honest, if reckless drivers ignored school buses, stop signs, and basic civilization, that faded yellow warning wasn't exactly Moses parting the freeway. It was less a safety device and more the world's first bumper sticker humble brag. Congratulations, we had sex once. 2. Kid leashes. Because apparently parenting became dog. Walking with goldfish crackers. At some point, exhausted parents looked at their unpredictable toddler sprinting toward a fountain, escalator, or active bear exhibit and thought, you know what this child needs? A harness. Thus, the toddler leash was born, part safety device, part public surrender flag. Suddenly, malls across America looked like Westminster dog show for preschoolers. Tiny humans waddled around attached to backpack monkeys, while parents held nylon straps like they were restraining a caffeinated raccoon in Velcro sneakers. Sure, the defense was always safety. He's a runner. Right. So is every 3-year-old with knees and poor judgment. Previous generations used phrases like, "Stay where I can see you," but modern parenting said, "No, let's accessorize this like parole with juice boxes." Nothing says dignity quite like your child reaching the end of a leash near the food court and snapping back beside an Auntie Anne's pretzel stand. It solved wandering, but also raised one unforgettable question. Are we raising children or walking very small drunk tourists? 3. Participation trophies. When losing became a milestone. Worth shelf space. There was a magical moment in parenting history when adults collectively decided children should never experience the devastating trauma of not being the best at recreational soccer. Enter the participation trophy, a shiny plastic monument to showing up upright. Suddenly, every kid who spent an entire season chasing butterflies in left field got the same gold-painted figurine as the one actually scoring goals. Little League transformed from competition into an awards ceremony sponsored by emotional bubble wrap. Parents smiled proudly while handing out trophies that basically said, "Congratulations, Tyler. You wore cleats and remained conscious." The intention was confidence, but somewhere along the way, we taught kids that effort and achievement were identical twins. Previous generations learned resilience by losing and dramatically kicking dirt. Now, even finishing last came with hardware. It was less about self-esteem and more about avoiding minivan meltdowns on the ride home. Because apparently, preparing kids for adulthood now meant convincing them the world hands out prizes for attendance. Spoiler alert, your mortgage company disagrees. 4. Overscheduled childhood. Turning 7-year-olds into burnt-out corporate interns. There was a time when kids came home from school, threw their bikes on the lawn, and vanished until sunset like tiny feral adventurers. Then parenting evolved into project management. Suddenly, childhood required calendars that looked like Wall Street trading schedules. Soccer on Monday, piano Tuesday, coding camp Wednesday, travel baseball Thursday, Mandarin tutoring Friday. Because apparently little Madison can't just eat popsicles anymore. She must also become a trilingual violinist by age 9. Parents began treating elementary school like a LinkedIn profile in progress, terrified their child might one day apply to Harvard without sufficient gymnastics trauma. Weekends became logistical hostage situations fueled by snack packs and passive-aggressive carpool texts. The irony? Kids ended up needing mindfulness apps before middle school because their free time had been kidnapped by resume building. Somewhere between karate practice and STEM camp, we forgot children are not startup companies requiring aggressive expansion. We took reach your potential and turned it into congrats, Braden. Your stress headache has extracurriculars. 5. Baby gender reveal parties. Because cake apparently wasn't dangerous enough. Once upon a simpler time, parents discovered a baby's gender, called grandma, and maybe bought a blue or pink onesie. Then society decided this private medical detail needed pyrotechnics. Gender reveals became the Super Bowl of unnecessary suspense, where balloons, smoke cannons, and occasionally wildfire-level incompetence announced whether little Aiden or Madison was on the way. Families gathered in backyards like they were awaiting NASA launch clearance, only to lose their minds when colored powder exploded from a baseball or cupcake. What should have been, "It's a girl," somehow became, "Set the county on fire with pink fireworks." America took childbirth and added explosives, because naturally, nothing says responsible parenting like causing a brush fire before the baby can blink. Entire forests have reportedly paid the price for Karen's confetti cannon ambitions. The child isn't even born yet, and already their existence has a special effects budget. At this point, some babies enter the world with less drama than their own announcement. 6. iPad parenting. When screen time became the modern babysitter with Wi-Fi. There was once a radical parenting technique called "go play outside." Then tablets arrived, and suddenly America handed toddlers glowing rectangles powerful enough to launch NASA missions just to survive dinner at Applebee's. Somewhere along the line, sticky fingers that once held crayons now expertly navigate YouTube before they can tie shoes. Parents swore it was educational, of course. He's learning. Sure, if learning means watching a man unbox dinosaur eggs for 6 straight hours while algorithmically descending into cartoon chaos. Restaurants transformed into silent temples of blue light, where children sat hypnotized like tiny Vegas gamblers pulling digital slot machines for dopamine. Back in the day, bored kids stacked sugar packets or committed minor public embarrassment. Now, they're one dead battery away from sounding like a hostage negotiation. The family tablet became less a tool and more a technological pacifier with a charger. We didn't eliminate tantrums. We just outsourced them to Samsung at 12% battery. 7. Juice boxes. Teaching kids. Sugar addiction. 1. Tiny straw at a time. America somehow took fruit, removed most of the dignity, loaded it with enough sugar to alarm a dentist, then packaged it like a Capri Sun-sized slot machine. Juice boxes became the lunchbox status symbol of the 80s and 90s, marketed as healthy because somewhere, deep in the ingredient list, an orange once existed spiritually. Parents packed them with the confidence of nutritionists, while children essentially shotgunned liquid candy between bites of Lunchables and fruit roll-ups. Every school cafeteria became a sticky battlefield of punctured foil straws, where one wrong jab could spray grape syrup across a Reebok sweatshirt like a tiny beverage assassination. And let's not forget the minivan back seat, where half-finished apple juice fermented in cup holders like failed suburban moonshine. We told ourselves it was vitamins. In reality, it was diabetes wearing a cartoon mascot. Nothing says balanced childhood quite like calling high-fructose corn syrup 100% fun. 8. Designer baby clothes. Because nothing says practical. Like a $60 outfit for someone who eats socks. At some point, parenting drifted away from keep the baby warm and crash-landed directly into infant couture. Suddenly babies, tiny drooling potatoes with zero motor skills, needed designer sneakers, Ralph Lauren polos, and miniature denim jackets costing more than your first car payment in 1987. Parents started dressing newborns like Wall Street interns headed to brunch, despite the child's primary daily activities being crying, sleeping, and aggressively ruining fabric. Department stores sold luxury outfits destined to be immediately baptized in spit-up, mashed peas, or what can only be described as biological betrayal. Grandma used to knit practical sweaters. Modern parenting said, "No, my 6-month-old needs Jordans." Why? The kid can't walk. He's basically a burrito with opinions. Entire photo albums now look like JCPenney catalogs sponsored by poor financial decisions. We somehow normalize spending premium prices on clothes outgrown faster than a new kid's on the block haircut. Congratulations! Your baby looks stylish while leaking from both ends. 9. Car seat Olympics. When leaving the hospital required engineering credentials. Once upon a simpler America, Babies rode home in someone's lap while dad smoked a Marlboro and adjusted the radio. Was that safe? Absolutely not. But today, we've swung so far the other direction that installing a car seat feels like assembling Cold War missile defense equipment. Modern parents don't buckle in a child. They perform a federally regulated hostage extraction simulation involving anchors, latches, angle indicators, chest clips, and enough straps to secure a refrigerator during a tornado. Fire stations literally inspect these things because one wrong click apparently transforms your SUV into a lawsuit. New parents stand in parking lots reading manuals thicker than VHS repair guides, sweating like they're defusing a bomb in a Buick. Rear-facing, forward-facing booster seats. It's less transportation and more NASA launch protocol for a human who just threw goldfish crackers at your neck. We've made childhood safety so complex that by the time your kid's secure, they're old enough to drive themselves. 10. Every kid gets a birthday party. Like it's a Vegas residency. There was a time when birthdays meant sheet cake, pizza, and maybe a clown who looked mildly tax delinquent. Then parenting decided little Braden. Turning 6 required the production budget of a halftime show. Now every birthday resembles a corporate retreat mixed with Pinterest on performance enhancers. Bounce houses, petting zoos, custom dessert walls, themed photographers, personalized banners. It's less happy birthday and more welcome to Caesar's Palace, but with juice pouches. Parents who once survived McDonald's Play Place now rent entire trampoline parks. Because apparently cake and tag no longer sufficiently honor surviving kindergarten. And don't forget the gift bags. Tiny plastic bribery sacks ensuring guests leave with enough sugar and noisemakers to destabilize their own households. Meanwhile, the birthday child is usually overstimulated, crying near a balloon arch that cost more than a Reagan-era mortgage payment. We didn't raise expectations. We turned childhood into event planning with frosting. Nothing says love like financially recovering from turning 7. 11. Constant GPS. Parenting, because apparently, kids can't walk to school without CIA-level surveillance. Remember when parents in the 70s and 80s had one location service called Be Home by Dark? Somehow those children survived riding bikes miles away with no cell phones, no tracking apps, and only vague neighborhood geography. Today, little Madison can't walk 3 houses down without her location being monitored like she's transporting nuclear codes. Parents track school buses, smartwatches, phones, and sometimes the family dog just in case everyone goes rogue. Entire apps now notify moms when Tyler leaves soccer practice, arrives at Taco Bell, or blinks suspiciously near a strip mall. It's less parenting and more suburban air traffic control. Sure, safety matters, but at this point, some kids can't sneak to Blockbuster without triggering more alerts than a bank heist. Childhood rebellion used to involve climbing out windows. Now it involves hacking Life 360. We didn't just protect kids, we gave them parole officers with push notifications. 12. Baby name, creativity, turning birth certificates into lifetime customer service problems. There was a golden era of simple American names: Mike, Jennifer, Dave. Then something happened. Parents collectively decided ordinary names weren't enough and began treating newborns like failed soft drink brands. Suddenly, classrooms filled with Jadens, Braxtons, McCarty Lees, and names spelled like Scrabble tiles dropped down a staircase. It wasn't enough to name your child Madison. You had to make it Maddison, so every Starbucks order became an act of war. Parents claimed uniqueness, as if kindergarten wasn't already hard enough without sentencing your child to 80 years of spelling corrections. Teachers now approach attendance like cryptographers decoding Cold War transmissions. Somewhere, basic phonics died screaming. And heaven help the poor DMV employee trying to fit Cadence Rain on a driver's license. We used to pass down family names. Now we're naming future accountants like rejected Wi-Fi passwords. Because apparently individuality starts by making sure no souvenir keychain ever includes your child. 13. Snack culture. When goldfish crackers became a full-time parenting economy. There was a time when children ate 3 meals, maybe a cookie, and somehow survived without a rolling buffet. Then America decided kids required constant snacking like tiny suburban livestock. Suddenly, every parent became a mobile concession stand, hauling enough granola bars, applesauce pouches, and cheese sticks to supply a minor league baseball team. Soccer moms weren't driving minivans anymore. They were operating snack distribution hubs with emergency pretzels in every cup holder. Heaven forbid little Carter experienced the unimaginable horror of existing for 14 minutes without organic bunny crackers. Entire tantrums now begin because someone packed the wrong flavor of yogurt tube, as though snack selection were protected by the Constitution. Back in the day, hunger built character until dinner. Now children negotiate snacks like Vegas high rollers. We didn't just normalize feeding kids, we turned parenthood into airport vending machine management. At this point, some children don't leave the driveway without enough provisions to cross the Oregon Trail. 14. Baby monitors. Because apparently static-filled surveillance wasn't enough. Once, parents checked on sleeping babies using a revolutionary system called walking down the hall. Then technology arrived, and suddenly nurseries required more surveillance than Fort Knox. Baby monitors evolved from grainy audio static into full HD night vision command centers with motion tracking, oxygen alerts, room temperature analytics, and enough app notifications to make new parents clinically paranoid. Moms and dads now stare at screens watching infants breathe like nervous casino security guards monitoring the world's smallest hostage. Every grunt sounds like DEFCON 1. Was that a cough? A sneeze? A plot? Meanwhile, the baby is just asleep. Blissfully unaware they're starring in their own low-budget reality show called Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Previous generations somehow raised children without infrared zoom or Wi-Fi panic attacks. Today, one buffering issue and parents sprint upstairs like Tom Cruise in an action movie. We didn't create peace of mind. We installed 24-hour anxiety with rechargeable batteries. 15. School fundraisers. Teaching kids. Capitalism through cookie dough and mild extortion. At some point, schools looked at childhood innocence and thought, what if we monetize this? Thus began the glorious suburban ritual of forcing children to become tiny door-to-door sales reps for wrapping paper, chocolate bars, and cookie dough tubs heavy enough to injure a golden retriever. Kids weren't just learning math, they were mastering cold call sales tactics before puberty. Parents dragged order forms into offices like MLM recruiters, cornering coworkers near microwaves with guilt-based pitches. Don't you care about little Emma's band uniforms? Entire neighborhoods learned to fear the sound of a child knocking while holding laminated brochures. And somehow the prizes were always offensively cheap. Sell $900 worth of popcorn tins? Congratulations! Here's a plastic dolphin keychain and the crushing realization of commission fraud. We told kids this built character, but really it taught them America's favorite lesson. Work absurdly hard, annoy everyone you know, and maybe earn a pencil topper. 16. Elf on the Shelf, holiday tradition, or December psychological warfare. Nothing says Christmas spirit quite like inviting a smug little surveillance goblin into your home to silently judge your children's every move. Elf on the Shelf somehow convinced millions of parents to become unpaid improv comedians, repositioning a creepy toy every night like overworked holiday stagehands. For 25 straight December mornings, exhausted adults scramble to create whimsical scenarios involving marshmallows, toilet paper, and minor property damage. Also, Braden believes Santa outsourced espionage to a porcelain-faced narc. Kids live under the constant pressure of being watched by what looks like a peppermint-flavored federal agent. Meanwhile, parents are half asleep at 2 a.m., cursing because they forgot to move the elf and now must explain why Jingles apparently pulled a double shift on the bookshelf. Previous generations had Christmas magic. Modern parents have mandatory seasonal performance art. We didn't create memories. We turned December into hostage negotiations with a decorative snitch. 17. Overprotective playground design. When recess became a safety seminar. Remember old school playgrounds? Towering metal slides hot enough to brand cattle, seesaws that doubled as dental hazard zones, and monkey bars that taught upper body strength through fear. They were glorious. Then parenting decided playgrounds should resemble minimum security yoga retreats. Today's playground equipment is so padded, rounded, and emotionally supportive, it looks like a startup office for toddlers. Slides are shorter, swings are softer, and every surface has the bounce factor of a memory foam mattress. Kids no longer conquer danger. They gently experience pre-approved gravity. Somewhere between liability lawsuits and helicopter parenting, recess became an OSHA-certified trust exercise. Sure, fewer broken arms, but also fewer life lessons about momentum, questionable choices, and why maybe jumping off the top rung wasn't wise. Previous generations learned resilience by surviving rusted steel and gravel. Now, a scraped knee triggers incident reports. We didn't make play safer. We transformed childhood into a heavily regulated theme park sponsored by Bubble Wrap. 18. Competitive parenting. Turning childhood into the Olympics of bragging rights. Parenting used to involve raising decent humans who could eventually operate a lawnmower responsibly. Now, it's an arms race. Every child accomplishment, from first steps to finger painting, must be announced like breaking news. Social media turned moms and dads into publicists for people who still eat crayons. Sophia read at age 3. Jackson's coding. Fantastic. Somewhere, a tired parent just wants their kid to stop licking shopping carts. Playdates became networking events. Preschool applications now sound like Ivy League admissions, complete with enrichment classes, Mandarin exposure, and STEM toys designed for children who still believe couches are mountains. And heaven forbid your child develops normally instead of advanced. Suddenly, parents compare milestones like fantasy football stats. We didn't just celebrate kids. We created suburban achievement Hunger Games where every bake sale feels like a resume booster. At this point, some toddlers have branding strategies before they have bladder control. 19. Professional family photos. Because matching khakis. Apparently equal love. Once a year, millions of American families willingly dress like a catalog exploded in a pumpkin patch. Why? Family photos. What began as a simple portrait somehow mutated into full-scale seasonal propaganda involving coordinated outfits, distressed denim, beige sweaters, and enough emotional tension to power a Hallmark movie. Dad, who'd rather be anywhere else, stands there in itchy khakis pretending this was his idea. Mom becomes executive producer, wardrobe director, and hostage negotiator. The children, naturally, are one juice box away from collapse. Yet everyone must smile beneath autumn leaves like they're starring in a Target ad called Functional Humans. And for what? A Christmas card. Proving your household can fake joy for exactly 0.8 seconds. Previous generations had one blurry Sears portrait every 5 years. Now families spend small fortunes manufacturing visual evidence that chaos occasionally color coordinates. We didn't preserve memories. We created annual beige-themed crisis management. 20. Sleep training. When exhausted adults declared war on human biology. Few parenting trends capture modern desperation quite like sleep training. The noble experiment where sleep-deprived parents, running on fumes and broken dreams, attempt to outstubborn a tiny screaming insomniac. At some point, America collectively decided babies, who were biologically designed to wake up constantly, should instead operate like disciplined office managers with reliable overnight schedules. Books appeared, experts emerged, Ferber methods, cry it out, gentle fading. It all sounded less like bedtime and more like hostage negotiation strategies from a suburban CIA handbook. Parents now sit outside nursery doors clutching monitors, stopwatches, and emotional instability, while their infant protests like a union organizer who's discovered betrayal. Grandma's generation just accepted sleep deprivation as part of the deal. Modern parents built spreadsheets. Every whimper becomes a philosophical crisis. Am I teaching self-soothing or creating a future supervillain? We transformed bedtime into psychological warfare because somewhere deep down, every parent just wanted one uninterrupted REM cycle before retirement. Sleep training didn't fix parenting. It simply turned exhaustion into a competitive strategy sport. 21. Organic everything. Because apparently, Goldfish crackers needed a moral compass. There was a glorious period when kids ate cereal shaped like cartoon mascots, drank fluorescent juice, and somehow survived long enough to become tax-paying adults. Then parenting discovered labels like organic, non-GMO, and ethically massaged kale. And suddenly grocery shopping became a moral referendum. Parents who once microwaved fish sticks now spend 45 minutes debating whether Braden's applesauce pouch was spiritually sourced by free-range orchards. Entire households act like a single artificial dye will instantly transform little Madison into a WWE heel. Lunches became curated wellness manifestos, featuring flax, chia, oat clusters, and snacks that taste like recycled birdhouses. Meanwhile, the same child will absolutely lick a shopping cart at Target. That's the real comedy. We obsess over pesticide-free blueberries while Kevin's out back eating sandbox gravel like a raccoon with no supervision. Parenting didn't become healthier. It became nutritional performance art, where adults spend triple the money so children can reject organic quinoa puffs in favor of one glorious gas station donut. 22. Gentle parenting. Rebranding discipline. Like a corporate PR campaign. Once upon a simpler suburban time, acting ridiculous in Kmart meant one look from your mother could shut down your entire personality. Today, we have gentle parenting, where a child can throw a yogurt tube at the dog, lick a freezer door, and body slam a sibling. And instead of consequences, there's a calm, emotional TED Talk. Modern parents kneel down in public like hostage negotiators, explaining big feelings to a 4-year-old currently trying to eat batteries. The goal, we're told, is emotional intelligence, admirable in theory. But somewhere along the way, basic authority got replaced by what sounds like HR conflict resolution for people who still need help with pants. I understand you're frustrated, Mason. Great. Mason just threw a shoe into traffic. Previous generations believed tantrums ended when nonsense did. Now some grocery store meltdowns last longer than Titanic. We didn't remove chaos. We just gave it therapeutic vocabulary. Gentle parenting sometimes feels less like raising children and more like managing a tiny, irrational coworker who screams because bananas bend wrong. 23. Social media parenting. When childhood became content before kids could even spell privacy. And here it is, the grand masterpiece of modern absurdity. For most of human history, embarrassing childhood moments faded into family legend. Maybe grandma mentioned bath time nudity once every Thanksgiving. But today, the second little Harper face plants into birthday cake, it's filmed, filtered, captioned, hashtagged, and uploaded before the child can emotionally process gravity. Parenting has entered the influencer era, where every first step, tantrum, dance recital, or orthodontic disaster becomes engagement. Entire childhoods are now curated like reality TV pilots sponsored by ring lights and affiliate links. Babies don't just exist, they launch personal brands. Parents once carried wallets full of awkward school photos. Now they manage digital archives, so vast future employers may one day discover Liam's potty training montage in 4K. And let's be honest, some kids didn't ask for memories. They got marketing campaigns. We used to raise children. Now we're producing unpaid content creators whose first words might as well be, "Don't forget to like and subscribe." So, which parenting disaster deserves the gold medal for nonsense, and which one raised you?